Die volgende man is iemand wat die ouer generasie goed gaan onthou. Ek moet sê, toe ek begin het met navorsing en bietjie met die jong klomp gepraat het, het hulle ook presies geweet wie Peter Lydenburg is. Die van julle wat nie heeltemal seker is nie, maak julleself reg vir 'n storie van wonderwerke. Dinge wat die kaalvoetskeer, kragbootkenner en motorrenjaer oor die jare al oorgekom en beleef het, is amper te goed om waar te wees. Die legendariese spoedvraat in Waaghals het die volk dekades lank aanaalskou met sy ervarings. Hy het ook al 'n paar keer in die dood se deur gaan klop, maar by die poort omgedraai. Maak vas daai gordels en kuier lekker saam met ons. Ek het in Langebaan gaan stories luister. Dit het alles begin op die kruin van 'n heuwel. Hy was 7. Dit was Republiekdag 1961, die dag van die Soapbox Derby, sy heel eerste kaskaresies. Hy het dalk nie daardie dag met spoed gewen nie, maar spoed het hom gewen. Want sedertdien kon Peter Lydenburg aan niks anders as jaag dink nie. Waterski, kragbootvaarte en motorresies sou sy lewe en missie word.
Peter Lydenburg once again in the front, Willie Hepburn on his tail.
Hy sou die onmoontlikste boonste sporte van sukses keer op keer behaal. Nederlae ongelukkig ook, maar onverskrokke opstaan, sterker as ooit, altyd. Deesdae span hy en sy vrou uit hier op Langebaan. Of hy egter stil sit, dit weet ek nie. Wie die man agter die vreeslose drif is, dit gaan ons vandag uitvind. Peter, vir die jonger generasie wat dalk nie so alles van jou weet nie. 39 keer Springbokklere gekry. 23 keer SA wêreldrekord. 3 keer Guinness World Records. Waarvoor was dit alles?
I got Springbok colours in 3 different sports, excluding motor racing. I got regional colours in motorsport, and I won quite a few national championships in motor racing as well. But it started with the water skiing. That's where it all started. And all the sport that I did was related to adrenaline. The ramp jumping was dangerous. Water ski racing was flippin' dangerous. I mean, we were water ski racing at 146 kilometers an hour on a single water ski.
Maar ek het jou boek gelees. Ek bedoel, jy was 2 keer was hy dood verklaar. Wat mense gedink het, jy's dood.
Ja, is verby.
Ek gaan daaroor ook gesels, maar daar was net die een insident na die ander, afgesien van hierdie klomp rekords. Maar jou liefde het op 'n jong ouderdom begin. Jy was 5 of 6 at the Grand Central.
Yeah, at Grand Central Racetrack. So my late dad took me to watch a car race. I still remember the noise of a race car engine screaming was like, whoa. It was just something else. And to this day, I mean, sometimes I'll mess about on my phone and I'll go and I'll actually listen to some of the engines from the old days Formula One cars. Because the modern Formula One cars, they're fantastic, but they don't have the same sound.
Maar toe het jou pa ook, jy het elke Sondag het jy glo, het pa gaan golf of iets speel en dan laai jy jou af.
Ja, sy laai my af by Kyalami en ek het net daar deur die heining gekyk by die Kuipe want ek wil inkom. En toe het mense my na 'n paar maande gesê, wag, jy's altyd hier so, kom, gee vir jou 'n kaartjie dat jy kan inkom. Ek wou eintlik vanaf 'n kind 'n renjaer wees.
But it's also, according to your book, kyk, jy het dit als gesê, so ek het dit goed nie opgemaak nie. According to your book, jy wil wen.
There was no reason to go and train, practice, or develop a boat engine, or develop a boat, or develop a race car to finish second. What's the point? If you're going to go and do that kind of stuff, and you're going to put that much into it, daar moet 'n mikpunt wees. En dit simpel vir daardie mikpunt, ek moet eers eindig. That's it.
Dink jy dit het ook te doen met matriek? Jy het matriek gedryf en jy en ma se verhouding was nie vreeslik goed nie.
Ja, ek het matriek gedryf, and my mom just turned around and says, well, I didn't expect anything else. So I didn't have the greatest relationship with my mom at that time. Later in life, it turned.
But do you think that's part of the thing that you want to show? Jy wou gewys het,
Yeah.
jy gaan nommer 1 wees.
Definitely. And afterwards, I realized that I made a big mistake because I was trying to prove to my mom that I wasn't stupid. So I went to university and studied accounting, which was just a big mistake. That's it. I mean, I can't think of anything more boring than being an accountant. So came home from university, I actually cried. I said, Dad, sorry, I'm done. He said, what do you mean? I said, I can't do this stuff.
Wat ek nie besef het, jy sê jy het 1 keer in jou lewe, eers later in jou lewe het jy 'n bier gedrink. Nog nooit gedrink nie, niks. Nie gerook nie.
No.
Is dit waar?
Absolutely. The first time I ever had a beer, it was the second year I won the South African Oval Championships. So I was already 52 years old.
Ek weet nie van iemand wat nog nooit gedrink het nie.
Nou weet jy vir hom. Jy ken mos nou iemand.
Op 8 September 1955 sit Pieter Lydenburg vir die eerste keer voet in die hoek op die lewe se resiesbaan. Hy is sy ouers se oudste van 2 seuns. Spoed is van meet af sy ding en hy jaag sy eerste kaskaresies reeds op die ouderdom van 7. Kinderjare. Pa, hy was 'n fotograaf.
Ja, presies.
Maar hy was ook streng. Jy het 'n nickname vir hom gehad.
Colonel.
Was hy kwaai?
My dad was a proper disciplinarian. To be honest, I think he was right. Because when I look at young people today and say how some of them misbehave, they need the club to sort them out. So he did it.
Ja.
I don't hold it against him, never did.
En julle was 2 kinders gewees,
Ja.
jy en Ellen.
Ja, precies.
Ellen was jonger as jy.
Ja.
Dit is nogal vir my hartseer wat jy ook skryf dat almal was liewer vir Ellen, selfs jy.
Ek dink dit was die feit dat hy beter by die skool gedoen het. Hy was beter sportman as ek by die skool. As enigiets verkeerd geloop het in die huis was ek was die een wat die klap moet vat, nooit om nie.
En toe het jou lewe ook taamlik verander. Dit was dit Lake Pleasant.
Yeah, so we went on holiday and we had a caravan and a guy arrived with his family and he had a boat and he was struggling to put his tent up. So my dad said to my brother, go and help him. So we put the tent, helped him put up the tent and then a few days later he came and said, look, he's going off to think it was called Swartvlei. Come with us, see if you guys can ski.
Is that where it happened?
Yeah, and we skied there in the holiday with him maybe 2 or 3 times.
Was jy toe al goed geweest toe jy nou daai eerste keer op die boot in die water?
Yeah, we got up and skied okay. And then my brother and I were at my dad. Get a boat.
Yeah.
And eventually when I was in matric, when he bought the boat, he took us every Sunday to go water skiing. And then one day he invited a friend of his to come with and was a bloody good water skier. When we were having lunch on the Sunday, we were having a braai, he said, listen, the South African Championships are taking place in a few weeks' time. These boys can ski. I'm entering your boys. And my dad was like, what do you mean? He said, I'm telling you, they can do it. You've got to go try. And I came second. No. And I was like, wait a minute. If I can come second at my first shot, I have to be able to win.
Ja.
And from there on, I won.
Op 22 neem hy vir die eerste keer aan die SA Waterski Kampioenskappe deel en wen loshande. Hy verwerf wêreldbekendheid vir kaalvoet waterski. Met sy beroemde kaalvoet sprong breek hy die wêreldrekord by 1977 se Europese Wêreldkampioenskap en stel later 2 Guinness wêreldrekords in hierdie gevaarlike sportsoort op. Sy renjaardrome is nie ver agter nie. Oor 'n tydperk van 48 jaar het Lydenburg Racing 22 nasionale kampioenskappe oor verskillende wedrendissiplines heen verseker, insluitend die Suid-Afrikaanse Westbank Modifieds Championship, die Saska-reeks en die V8 Legends of the 9-Hour Championship. Jy het jou lisensie gekry. Jy het jou lisensie gekry toe jy 17 is.
Ja.
Hoe?
Want die ou agter die toonbank so dom was. Hy kon nie dit uitwerk dat 72 min 55 is nie 18 nie. Maar ek het daar ingeloop en ek gesê ek wil betaal vir my learners. Vul alles in reg hier en hy maak net so ja. Okay.
But jy het toch geweet jy mag dit eers kry op 18. Why did you apply for it at the age of 7?
Because we were going to go on holiday to Plettenberg Bay and my dad said, well, the only way we can take the boat with is if we tow the boat behind the caravan. My mom said, not a chance. I said to my dad, well, what do we do? He said, go take a chance. He says, you never know. If you don't try, you don't get. I walked out of there with an appointment for a learner's license, did my learners, came in, filled in the form for my license. It still didn't work out that he was 1 year out and I passed my license.
And take the boat on holiday?
Went on with the boat on holiday, everything was cool.
And your first car was a Ford Capri?
Yeah. It was my uncle's car and it was using more oil than petrol. went to another one of my uncles, and he had a garage, and he helped me rebuild the engine.
Het jy met hom gereis toe met die
I didn't race with it, but did 103 miles an hour in that Capri. There are certificates from the 100-mile-an-hour club at Kyalami in those days, 1974.
I want to know about the 100
I
club.
did. So the original old Kyalami, and they had a speed trap after you came under the bridge down through the dip. And if you did over 100 miles an hour, you got a certificate and a pat on the back. And then I thought, hang on a minute. If I'm lucky, my dad's gone to golf, and his car, which was a Mustang, is in the garage at home. So I go home with the Capri, get in the Mustang, crack 100 miles an hour. I go home, my mom's, and she had a Granada Piranha. I hoof it back to Kyalami. I crack 100 miles an hour in that as well.
Ja, jy was ook baie betrokke by, soos wat ons dit ken, drag racing, die straatracesies.
I did a lot of, call it illegal drag racing when I was at Wits University. And I used to win. I mean, that Capri could really haul.
Maar so jy het self die drag racing.
I drove the Capri in the street drag race.
I thought jy was die ene wat dit van die strate af.
Oh, no. So that was much later.
Yes.
I was together with partners. We built West Bank Raceway in Germiston. And there, I really was the guy who took illegal street racing off the roads in the East Rand. We got the guys to all come to West Bank Raceway and to at least drive in a safe environment.
Because drag racing still, dis 'n gevaarlike ding, né?
The trouble with illegal street racing is that it happens where there's not sufficient safety for the spectator. So if a car goes out of control, there's trouble. And that's happened a few times. And that shouldn't happen.
Na die advertensiebreek gesels Pieter oor een van die gevaarlikste sportsoorte, kragbootresies, waar hy al 2 keer doodverklaar is, en sy noue ontkomings tydens sy ander liefde, motorsport. Ons hoor ook van sy ongelooflike familie wat daar was en is vir hom. Sy grootste passie en sukses is Formule 1 kragbootresies. Pieter het die Suid-Afrikaanse kampioenskap meer as 15 keer gewen.
But nobody can catch Peter Lindenberg, who's been unstoppable today.
Sy bootbesigheid, Lindenberg Marine, was in 'n stadium een van die grootste bootvervaardigers in die land. Dis egter ook hierdie sport wat hom 'n paar keer die engele laat hoor sing het. En dan natuurlik die kragbootresies. What is it called in English?
Yeah, powerboat racing.
Powerboat racing. Hulle sê dis een of die gevaarlikste sportsoort.
It's very dangerous. Look,
Why?
to understand Formula One powerboat racing, you've got to have the ability to work out the relationship between airflow and water flow. So aerodynamics versus hydrodynamics, because the boat's got to be balanced between the two. If the boat's running on the water, it's going to be slower because of the friction. If it's running too high off the water, it's going to blow over because the air gets underneath.
And how do you learn that? Is it just an instinct?
It's an instinct. You actually feel it on your backside when you're running the boat.
Ek is nou dom met hierdie goed, maar as jy nou op die boot is wie's nou saam met jou?
Niemand. So Formula One, it's like a Formula One car on water. It's a single-seater. You sit in a very concentrated part of the boat. It's probably one of the most challenging things to drive, and it also has incredible G-forces. It's one of the only machines that you can go through a 180-degree corner at 180 kilometers an hour.
Was jy met tye wat jy bang was as jy op daai boot is?
As jy bang is, dan doen jy wat ek nie wil doen, en dis tweede eindig. Jy moet nie bang wees.
Maar glad nie dat jy dink, o genade. Want vertel ons van die kere wat jy was letterlik doodverklaar in Maleisië.
So die boot het so gemaak, hy het so opgestyg en dan het hy so, en ek weet nie hoekom, hy het so gemaak en dan in die water ingeduik, maar teen oor 200 km/h. En hulle kon my nie uitkry nie.
Uit die boot uit toe.
Ja, die boot was oor en ek was binne betrap. And they took me out of the boat eventually, and I'd been underwater for over 3 minutes without breathing. And they brought me to the side, and they had the doctors there, and they had the defibrillator, and my heart had stopped. They tried probably 4 or 5 times, and nothing happened. And the guy who owned the boat that I was driving, the guy I was driving for, the team owner, went and he grabbed the doctor, and he pulled him back, and he went, one more. And they take the defibrillator, and they clap my heart again, and it fired.
Dit het lank gevat om te herstel.
It was a tough time because the accident happened in Malaysia. And I was in a coma there for more than a week. When I came out the coma, when they decided that I could fly home, just before the plane landed, I had a brain hemorrhage. And I didn't even know. I only knew when the plane had landed and people were getting up to get off the plane. I was sitting there and I was like, I can't stand up. And then I knew, okay, I'm in big, big trouble here. So they took me straight from the airport to Sandton Clinic, and a neurologist did all the tests and everything. And the doctor turned around and he said, look, he's had a brain hemorrhage, and in the place that he's had the hemorrhage, I'm telling you, he'll never drive again. And I was sitting and I was thinking to myself, but you don't understand me, I'll drive.
Hoe lank daarna dryf jy toe?
Must have been about 6-8 weeks
Nee,
that I
my
drove.
genade.
Yeah.
Was that at Sanin?
Yeah, that story at Zanin. For the first probably week, I couldn't even walk from our front door to our gate. Because I was buggered. My left side just didn't, and I lost my speech. And yeah, I just kept trying. And after probably 2 weeks, I started to be able to walk up and down the road outside. And people were amazing. And my competitors started to complain when Debbie entered me for the race in Zanin. They're like, he can't race, he needs special medical approvals and all that stuff. And
He can hardly talk, but he wants to race.
Yeah, we went to the neurologist and we had to go to a cardiologist because my heart had failed when I drowned. And we got the letters on the Friday morning. from
That
the
you
two
can do
doctors
it.
that I can race. Debbie organized, she chartered a helicopter. And the helicopter flew me to the race. And the flag dropped and into the first corner. I came out the first corner in the lead and I won the race.
Good heavens.
And then I couldn't even get out the boat. They had to get the paramedics to get me out the boat. I couldn't walk.
Dit klink soos dit klink nie if it's for real nie. There was also was it in Saldanha Bay.
Right, yeah.
Ja.
Right, yeah.
Wat daar ook wat jy ook
Exactly the same type of accident where the boat did this. Bounced up and then went to the side and went in.
en het jy toe ook so seer gekry?
I was in a coma for a while because I drowned. Again, I drowned. They had to get my ticker going again and all that stuff. And I was in hospital. I was in hospital for quite a while after that one.
There was also an incident, was it 1998 at the West Bank V8 Championship?
Yeah, we were racing at Kyalami and I was one of the front runners. As I hooked the gear from second to third, I realized the throttle was jammed full open because the res didn't drop as I changed gear. The res just, okay, gonna crash because you can't stop it at that speed. And I drove the car straight into the concrete wall. And it was a hell of an accident. Broke both my legs to bits. And when the crash was over, the bonnet was on top of my crash helmet.
So jy's nie bang vir die dood nie?
Look, I don't want to die. Like, none of us really want to die. But I don't think about it when I'm racing. If you're a racing driver, you kind of know. The pawpaw can hit the fan anytime.
Dan is daar ook 'n storie, en dit was vir my nogal snaaks geweest, but something about 3 pills.
We had this whole event going on, and I just felt terrible. And eventually I just went and hid away, took a car cover, put it over me and went to sleep. And they came, they couldn't wake me up. Eventually they called a doctor and then they put me in hospital and I didn't wake up.
En hulle kon nie verstaan nie.
Nobody knew what was going on. Late in the afternoon I woke up and I was kind of a bit drowsy, but I was okay. And the doctor came and he said, look, he said, we've done everything. We've checked your heart, your brain, your lungs. There's nothing wrong with you. So I said, well, then I'm going. He said, you can go because I can't do anything. I still said to Debbie the next morning, I said, Deb, I have no idea what happened. I said, it's crazy. She said, I don't know. I said, well, just give me my tablets that I've got to take because after this thing with my heart and whatever, I take chronic medication, whatever. And she gave me the tablets and she looked at me and she said, you know what? I said, what? She said, yesterday morning, I actually gave you your sleeping tablets.
Was jy nie die duiwel in nie?
No, I laughed. I was like, okay, well, whatever. It is what it is.
Sy grootste prestasie is nie sy tientalle Springbokkleure of nasionale titels nie. Pieter se diepste trots lê in Debbie, sy lieflike vrou en 3 pragtige eysterasters van dogters. Hy kan homself ook al 'n oupa noem. Kyk, Debbie is vir my 'n pragtige vrou. Sy's mooi, né?
Yeah, she is.
Wat ek so bewonder van haar is sy het jou haar hele lewe klink het vir my bygestaan.
100%. She was amazing. I mean, you just think what she had to go through. Don't know how she put up with me.
En 3 dogters.
Yeah.
Hulle is ook in die racing.
The eldest one, Kiara, did do racing. I built her a drag bucky, and she dragged, and she was good. And in fact, today, she basically runs our race team.
Okay.
And then Paige, the second one, races, and she's bloody good. She wins. And the youngest one, she's been involved in the motor industry her whole life and still is. And so all of them, all 3 are in the motor industry.
And apparently you like a teddy bear with a grandchild.
Yeah. No, he's lekker. When he was 2 years and 4 months, he rode a motorbike on his own with no fairy wheels. Nothing. No balance wheels, nothing.
Good job, buddy.
Pieter, as wat jy nou hier voor my sit, het jy pyn? Is daar arms?
Yeah. Look, I never complain. I have a lot of discomfort. My back,
Is it?
my hips, my body's had a rough time. I always say to people, and it's in the book, if anybody said to me, I could have my life again, what would I change? And my answer was, ek drukkie kyk weer knoppie. That's it. I don't have regrets.
Well, it was an absolute privilege om by jou te kuier. Baie dankie.
Pleasure.
Sy naam staan saam met al die ander grootes geskryf in die Suid-Afrikaanse sportheldesaal. Hy sal 2 keer met die president se sporttoekenning vereer. Tel daarmee saam sy noue ontkomings en triomfantelike seges en sy pa se woorde word waar. Moenie bang wees vir die stryd nie. Jy sien dit nie nou nie, maar die stryd is eintlik die geskenk. Pieter, dankie vir 'n aangename kuier. Jy's enig in jou soort.